They dumped Dr. Pepper on a black woman in a Seattle tech firm. 15 minutes later, the entire floor was under investigation. The syrupy soda soaked into Tanisha Green's coils, trailing down her burgundy silk blouse, pooling across the quarterly projections she'd spent nights perfecting. Oops, sneered Amanda Carlisle, VP of Product. Thought your ideas needed a little flavor. Laughter erupted from Kyle Reynolds, a smug junior analyst recording everything on his iPhone 15. Look y'all, day at its finest, now with bubbles. He mocked. HR Representative Maggie Lynn chuckled while texting. #quotaqueen. Tanisha stood still, her brown eyes locked on Amanda's smug face. Not one coworker stepped in. At 32, Tanisha was the only black woman in the firm, a Stanford-educated data scientist now ridiculed in front of spreadsheets and silence. What's wrong, sweetheart? Amanda taunted. You gonna run to your little mentor? Tanisha calmly picked up her phone. No, she said softly. He's on his way. 15 minutes later, the executive elevator dinged. 3 guards stepped out. Behind them, Lucas Monroe, CEO of Monroe Tech Holdings, and Tanisha's husband. And no one in that office would forget what happened next. Chapter 1: The Shame in the Shadows. Tanisha didn't move. The stickiness of the soda clung to her skin, dripping from her curls onto the polished floor. Her blouse clung to her body like a wet rag. And the sweet, acidic smell of Dr. Pepper filled the room. Papers she'd stayed up all night printing were ruined, ink bleeding into a blur across every chart. But that wasn't what stung the most. It was the laughter. Kyle cackled as he uploaded the video to his story. God, this is gold, he said, still filming. This is why I come to work on Fridays. Amanda leaned against Tanisha's desk with the smug ease of someone who'd never been told no. She sipped from her LaCroix, watching Tanisha like she was a bug under glass. You're being dramatic, she said. It was a joke. Maggie chimed in from across the room, still scrolling on her phone. Honestly, Tanisha, if you can't take a little workplace humor, maybe tech isn't for you. No one said a word in her defense. Around the open plan office, eyes looked up from screens, some curious, others guilty, most pretending not to see. A few interns in hoodies whispered near the coffee station. A product manager chuckled under his breath. Tanisha's chest burned. Not from the soda, not from the shame, from holding it all in. She had worked too hard for this. A full ride at Stanford. Late nights coding while working part-time. The rejections. The constant pressure to be twice as good for half the credit. And now, this. You don't belong here, Amanda muttered just loud enough. You people never do. That phrase, you people, it echoed like a slap. Tanisha blinked. She could feel something break inside, not her pride. That was still there, standing tall even when her clothes clung and her skin was soaked in humiliation. No, what cracked was her tolerance. Her silence. She looked around the office again. Not one ally, not one person willing to say, this isn't okay. She wasn't surprised. Not really. It had been 6 months of subtle digs, stolen ideas, whispered jokes, backhanded compliments about how articulate she was. But this was different. This was war. Tanisha pulled out her phone. Her fingers didn't tremble, not even a little. She tapped one name, Lucas, and with one word, she ended the call. Now, Chapter 2: The elevator that didn't ding for just anyone. The clock on the wall ticked slowly toward 4 p.m. Tanisha remained seated at her desk, sticky, soaked, and silent, but something had shifted, not just in her posture, which was still and composed, but in the air itself. A tension, quiet but growing, started to spread across the office like a ripple in still water. Amanda's smirk faded just slightly. Kyle glanced at his phone, then back at Tanisha, noticing her calm, unfazed expression. What, did you call your little activist friends? He muttered, trying to provoke another reaction. Nothing. Tanisha folded the ruined papers on her desk, one by one, stacking them neatly. She didn't look up. You're being creepy now, Maggie said, voice high and brittle. Still, no answer. Then it happened. The private elevator, unused since the board meeting in May, lit up. The soft ding that followed was almost polite, too quiet to match the growing apprehension settling in the room. Every head turned. 3 suited security guards stepped out first. Not the regular ones from downstairs, but sterling-grade, clean-cut, earpieces in, all business. Behind them walked a man in a midnight blue Tom Ford suit. Coat unbuttoned, confidence worn like armor. Lucas Monroe, CEO of Monroe Tech Holdings. Net worth, somewhere near $11 billion. The kind of man who didn't visit branch offices, he summoned people to come to him. Until now. Amanda's mouth dropped open. Kyle's phone nearly slipped from his hand. Maggie turned ghost white. Tanisha, Lucas said, crossing the floor like he owned every square foot of it, which, technically, he did. Tanisha stood. Lucas's eyes scanned her from head to toe, her soaked blouse, the soda in her curls, the humiliated stillness she wore like a badge of survival. His jaw clenched. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low and dangerous. She nodded once. "I am now." He turned to the guards. "Please escort these 3 individuals out. Immediately." Amanda blinked. "Excuse me? Who are you?" Lucas didn't look at her. He looked at Tanisha. "This is your office, Tan." She smiled slightly. Amanda stepped forward. "You can't do this. We work here. We're executives." Lucas finally turned. "And I'm the majority shareholder. That makes this my building, my network, my company. And you're done." Kyle opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Lucas didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every word hit like a closing door. A few employees peeked over cubicle walls, watching with wide eyes. Others pulled out their phones, but no one laughed now. No one smirked. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone felt it. Tanisha reached into her bag, pulled out a folder. She handed it to one of the guards. "Send this to HR and legal," she said quietly. It's time they saw the truth. Amanda glanced at the folder, then at Lucas. "This is ridiculous. What is this? Some vendetta?" Lucas took a step closer. "This is accountability." Maggie began to cry. "I didn't mean. I was just." Tanisha looked her in the eye. "You were just silent. That's the loudest choice of all." The guards began moving. Amanda resisted. Kyle froze. Maggie sobbed. But Tanisha? She stood tall in soda-soaked clothes, surrounded by silence and now something more. Respect. If you're still listening to this story with me, comment the number 1 below. Let's see who's still walking through this storm with Tanisha, because the real reveal is only just beginning. Chapter 3. The Reckoning. The atmosphere in the Apex marketing office was thick with tension. The usual hum of keyboards and muted conversations had been replaced by an uneasy silence. Employees exchanged nervous glances, sensing that something monumental was about to unfold. Suddenly, the private elevator, reserved exclusively for the company's top executives, dinged softly. All eyes turned as the doors slid open, revealing a tall, imposing man in a tailored Tom Ford suit. His presence exuded authority and power. "Tanisha," he called out, his voice resonating through the office. "Are you all right?" Gasps echoed around the room as employees recognized the man, Alexander Sterling, the billionaire CEO of Sterling Enterprises and Tanisha's husband. His unexpected arrival sent shockwaves through the office. Tanisha, still drenched in soda, nodded silently. Alexander's gaze hardened as he took in her disheveled appearance. He turned to the trio responsible for her humiliation, Jessica, Brad, and Samantha. "Security," he commanded, his tone icy. "Escort these individuals out of the building immediately." Jessica stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You can't do this. This is our office." Alexander's eyes narrowed. "Correction. This is my office. Sterling Enterprises is the majority shareholder of Apex Marketing, YouTube." Brad's face turned pale, and Samantha looked as if she might faint. The reality of their situation began to sink in. As security escorted the trio out, Alexander addressed the remaining employees. "Let this be a lesson. Discrimination and harassment have no place here. Effective immediately, we will be implementing comprehensive diversity and inclusion training across all departments." The office erupted into applause, the sound echoing off the walls. Tanisha stood tall, her dignity restored. She had faced adversity with grace and strength. And now, justice had been served. This moment marked a turning point, not just for Tanisha, but for the entire company. It was a powerful reminder that standing up against injustice can lead to meaningful change. To be continued. Chapter 4, When Purpose Speaks Louder Than Revenge. The day after Jessica, Brad, and Samantha were escorted out of the Apex office, a company-wide email landed in every inbox at 8 a.m. sharp. Subject: From Pain to Purpose, a new chapter begins. The message came directly from Tanisha Green, now listed in the company directory with a new title, Director of Ethical Innovation, Sterling Enterprises. In it, she thanked the employees who had reached out privately to express support, and gently challenged those who had remained silent. Change doesn't start when wrong is done to us, she wrote. It starts when we choose not to look away. Attached was a presentation titled, Project Rise, a new initiative to fund full scholarships in STEM for young Black women from underrepresented communities. Powered by redirected equity from the shares once held by the 3 terminated employees. She called it Justice That Builds. The idea had been hers for months. Born long before the soda. Before the humiliation. She never wanted vengeance. She wanted a system where nobody else would have to go through what she did to prove they belonged. At 10 a.m., she stood in the Apex main auditorium before hundreds of employees and board members. This time, not as the quiet analyst in the back row, but as the voice they couldn't afford to ignore. Wearing a charcoal gray pantsuit and her natural curls free, she stepped onto the stage without a note. I was never just your quota, she began, her voice steady. There was silence, thick, reverent. I came here to work, to solve problems, to contribute, and for months, I did, while enduring whispered jokes, eye rolls, stolen credit, and finally, soda in my face. She let that settle, but what they didn't realize was, I was listening. I was documenting, and I was building. She clicked to the next slide. A screenshot of her patent filing, an algorithm for identifying bias patterns in internal communications and behavior analytics. A system she had coded quietly in her spare hours. Using anonymized data, predictive modeling, and deep learning. The name of the software, EMPATH Ethical Monitoring Platform for Accountability, Transparency, and Healing. The estimated commercial value? $62 million. Gasps rippled through the room. I could have taken it somewhere else, she said, but I wanted it to start here. Where the pain happened, where healing should begin. Alexander Monroe stood at the side, watching her, pride shining through his usually stoic expression. She turned toward him and nodded. He stepped forward and announced, Sterling Enterprises is proud to seed the launch of the Green Fellowship. With a $50 million initial commitment, made possible by Tanisha's innovation and a little redistribution of hate-funded wealth. Laughter, applause, a few teary eyes. But Tanisha wasn't done. There's more, she said. The screen showed a list of partner companies, Microsoft, Salesforce, Google, Tesla, companies pledging to adopt empath and implement transparency standards. We're not just changing one office, she said, we're redefining what safety, equity, and accountability mean in corporate America. The room erupted. Some stood, some cried, all listened, and in that moment, Tanisha wasn't just the woman who took a soda to the face. She was the woman who took pain and built a pipeline. Not just for justice, but for opportunity. If you're still listening to this story with me, comment the number 2 below. Because what Tanisha built isn't just a program, it's a movement. And it's only just beginning. Chapter 5. The Legacy of Tanisha Sterling, a beacon of hope and inspiration. 6 months had passed since the fateful day at the Apex marketing office in Chicago. The incident that began with a humiliating act of racism had transformed into a powerful movement for justice and equality. Tanisha Sterling, once a quiet analyst, had become a symbol of resilience and change. In the heart of downtown Chicago, the former Apex marketing building had been repurposed into the Tanisha Sterling Institute for Technological Equity. This state-of-the-art facility now served as a hub for young Black innovators, providing them with resources, mentorship, and opportunities to develop groundbreaking technologies. The Tanisha Sterling Scholarship Fund, initially seeded with $50 million from the forced sale of shares owned by the former Apex employees and matched by a personal donation from Alexander Sterling, had already awarded full scholarships to over 500 Black students pursuing degrees in STEM fields. These scholars, many of whom came from underprivileged backgrounds, were now attending prestigious universities across the United States. Tanisha's impact extended beyond academia. Her Hire app, designed to detect patterns of discrimination in corporate environments using artificial intelligence, had been adopted by over 1.200 companies globally. Major corporations like Microsoft, Google, and Apple had partnered with the initiative, committing to more inclusive hiring practices. At the annual Tech for Equality Summit in San Francisco, Tanisha delivered a keynote address that left the audience in awe. Dressed in a sleek black Armani suit, she spoke not of revenge, but of justice and the importance of building a world where talent is recognized regardless of race or background. "When they threw Coca-Cola on me," she began, her voice steady and powerful, "they didn't realize they were watering the seeds of a revolution." The audience erupted in applause. Many moved to tears by her words. Among them were CEOs, civil rights activists, and the very scholarship recipients whose lives had been transformed by her efforts. Tanisha's father, Marcus Thompson, a retired bus driver, joined her on stage, holding the Nobel Peace Prize she had just received for her contributions to social justice through technology. His voice trembled with emotion as he addressed the crowd. "My daughter has always been brilliant," he said, "but for too long, the world only saw her color. Now, they see her brilliance." The story of Tanisha Sterling served as a powerful reminder that one person's courage can ignite a movement. Her journey from humiliation to triumph inspired countless others to stand up against injustice and work towards a more equitable future. As the summit concluded, attendees left with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to carry forward the legacy of Tanisha Sterling. Her story had not only changed the lives of those directly impacted but had also sparked a broader conversation about diversity, inclusion, and the power of resilience. In the words of Tanisha herself, "True diversity isn't about quotas. It's about recognizing that talent has no color, class, or zip code." And with that, a new chapter in the fight for equality had begun, led by a woman who turned adversity into a beacon of hope for generations to come. When dignity speaks louder than hate, sometimes, the most powerful revolutions don't begin with fire, they begin with silence. With someone choosing not to scream, not to retaliate, but to wait, observe, and rise. Tanisha Green didn't raise her voice the day they tried to humiliate her. She raised her standards. She could have walked away. She could have fought back with rage. But instead, she chose something infinitely stronger, justice that builds, not destroys. Her story reminds us that the greatest strength lies not in retaliation, but in transformation. For every person who has ever been underestimated, dismissed, or silenced because of how they look or where they come from, Tanisha's journey is a lighthouse. A reminder that you do not have to change who you are to fit into broken systems. You can change the system instead. This isn't just a tale of corporate reckoning. It's a story about turning pain into power. About how one woman's refusal to be broken became the bridge for thousands to cross toward opportunity. So ask yourself, what would you do with your silence? With your pain? Would you let it break you? Or would you, like Tanisha, let it build something that outlasts you? If this story touched you, if you've ever faced something unfair and wished you had the strength to speak up, drop a comment below with the word respect. Let's fill this space with voices that believe in dignity, in equity, and in the quiet strength of doing what's right. And if you want more stories like this, stories that inspire, challenge, and remind us of who we can become, hit like, subscribe, and turn on that bell. Because we're not just telling stories here. We're building something bigger, together.